Welcome to the Supreme Love Project, where you learn to love supremely so you can live supremely. This is a Power Hour. This is the place where you can get the information you need to heal the terrors in your soul and launch a revolution in your life. Get ready. Take notes. Now, here's your host, Janine Staples.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Supreme Love Project. I am Janine Staples, your founder and host, and we are back for another episode of Cold Crush. And we have a spectacular and important and wonderful guest today, Lara Fernandez from johnnyandlara.com. Johnny, welcome to the Supreme Love Project. I am very, very glad to have you as my special guest today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah, we were looking forward to you as an all-our guest, but especially because you are a part of a dynamic duo. What I'd like to do in the beginning is open up the floor to my guests. I invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you began doing the work that you're doing, and what your work is all about.
Sure, absolutely. Once again, just thanks so much for having me. And I am definitely part of a duo. I appreciate the dynamic part, but for sure,
yes.
For sure, my claim to fame is that I'm married to the love of my life, the woman of my dreams, Lara Fernandez, and so we've been together now. This is our 16th year, 15 years, a little over 15 years married, and we definitely didn't start out to be love coaches or love experts. That was never our intention. Lara very consciously and intentionally attracted me to her. And she's a doctor, so she had a chiropractic office, and I started working with her at the office. And she and I just love being together all the time, as much as possible. So we're working together, then we'd go home together. We had a daughter, and so we're taking care of our baby together. And her patients started asking her, God, you're together all the time. You seem so in love. Like, how did you find this guy? Or how did this happen? Or how does this work? Or, all this type of stuff. And she would tell them, well, I was very conscious and intentional of attracting the right person to me. This is my soulmate. And so we love being together and stuff like that. And every soulmate is different in terms of, how much they want to be together. But our thing is we just want to be together and do things all the time, do things together all the time. And so, so she would help them with they asked about, what do you mean about conscious and intentional and attracting your soulmate? What do you mean about all that? So she just got a lot of questions about that, and her patients were mostly women, and so they could relate to her experience. She said, oh my God, I was round and around and, all these guys, and we live in the Bay Area, and so a lot of times women say, oh, it's so hard to meet guys in the Bay Area, stuff like that. And so after her answering their questions and them coming back for more and asking more, it got to the point where they were mostly just asking about that and not so much about their health care. And she said, we got to somehow stop this because I got a chiropractic practice to go here. And so I have a background in education. I created curriculum for schools and I taught for years, and I taught teachers how to teach the curriculum, both in New York and in California. And I said, why don't we just put together a little workshop, and I'll teach it because I'm getting a little antsy sitting behind a desk so much. I'd love to be able to teach, and we also did some research to see if what Lara did was what other people have done, mostly women, what other people have done, and I just put my educational kind of wonky hat on and did some research and found that, actually there's certain steps that she took and certain transformations that she went through. And so we shared that in a workshop, as much as we could in a little workshop. And it was standing room only. We said we only have like 12 chairs, and so that's all the people we can fit. And they said, I don't care about a chair, I'll just stand. So we had women, and at the time we also taught men as well. It was mostly women, but now we work exclusively with women. But and then we said, maybe in a few months we'll do a one-day workshop, maybe go a little bit deeper into it. And they were like, what? We don't want to wait a few months. We want to do it now. And it just took off. And so we shared more. We had one day, then it grew into a weekend. And they just wanted to hear both from the man and the woman, because a lot of times people are teaching something, but you only hear one side of the story or one perspective, either the masculine or the feminine. And so they really appreciated hearing from both of us, and especially, like I said, most of them are women looking to attract a man, and so hearing from a man about it was helpful. And so that was over 11 years ago. And so for a crazy year and a half, we actually had the chiropractic practice, and we had these workshops, and we were speaking at bookstores and in church basements and just things where we're invited to and things where we kind of set up things. And then Lara said, you know what, I'm really feeling that this is my mission, and I was clear for myself this was my mission. And so she retired as a chiropractor, and now we've just been doing this for, like I said, about 11 years now. So that's how we got started, just like living our life, certainly not thinking of ourselves as love experts, but over time it's become quite evident that what she did was not something that is kind of out there in the common vernacular and the common experience, and it's been very fulfilling. At this point, we have so many clients that are happily married to the right person for them, children born, families blended, all kinds of things. And so that's how I came to be here. But really, like I said, my big thing as a love expert is I know how to be open to a wonderful woman, and she knows how to attract in the right guy for her. So that's why we're here, and I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. You know, my team finds my guests, and I tell them what I want, what my vision is, and they go out and they do the work. And when they came back with your name, Johnny, with Johnny and Lara, and said, what about Johnny Fernandez, and Lara Fernandez? And I said, yes, because I'm actually on their list. I actually follow your story, and I know what your background is, and I know what you just described very well, and I'm glad that now members of the Supreme Love Project have that information as well. And here's why. Well, there's a few different reasons. But one of the primary reasons is that, you know, what Cold Crush is all about, it's about providing frameworks, it's about providing methods, systems, ideas, support structures that can help to crush some of the cold that has been built up around a woman's heart, her soul, for a long period of time. And this has a lot to do with intimacy blocks. And what you just described, the special bond that you and Lara share, is sort of the end result of what so many people in the community actually want to get to and maybe don't believe they can. There are some women who have been spinning out in, defensive mode, a lot of, spinning out and, with a lot of toxicity, with a lot of anger, with a lot of resentment, with a lot of shame, with guilt. There's a lot of performance in our womanhood, and that spin cycle over a long period of time can really, really mess with your belief systems. It's really the capacity you have to believe that you can have what you just described, that you can have somebody who's healthy, who's present, who's honest, who's got great integrity, high character, and who really wants to be close, emotionally, physically, sexually, socially close. It sounds, for some people who are listening, unbelievable. I've had great love, and I've experienced really true deep connection and intimacy like that, and I want it for every woman. So you talked us through how you started doing the work with your wife, the love of your life, and talking about attraction and sort of what that looks like in real time, and building out a space for coaching to help people to grasp that concept and make it real. So my next question, and to lead us in to a conversation that can really dig deeper, is what do you mean when you talk about patterns, like patterns of behavior? I guess it's patterns of speaking, patterns of thinking. And how does a woman know what her patterns are if they are keeping her stuck?
Sure. So you mentioned how there's like a kind of a coldness, right? That's what we're doing here in Cold Crush, is looking at there's a certain a protection, a little extra protection. Well, the reality is, the first thing is, when we look at the patterns that show up in our lives, is like, let's be real here about the society that we live in. So probably every one of you who are listening right now live in a probably more westernized society. That's how you have access to this. Well, that means you live in a patriarchal society that honors and values masculine traits more so than feminine traits. Now, that doesn't mean that feminine traits and femininity isn't valuable, but the society, the capitalist society, values more the masculine traits and production than feminine, which is more alluring and more about the experience and the moment-to-moment experience. So obviously hyper generalization there, but just, understanding the differences between them. And so as a woman wanting to be in her feminine, if it feels hard to do that, to both maintain your strength and be soft and inviting and alluring, that's not your imagination. That's real, because you live in a day-to-day society that is giving you feedback that when you do the masculine thing, you get credit. When you do the feminine thing, that's less important. And what we believe is that nothing could be further from the truth. On an individual basis, on a collective basis, on a worldwide basis, the world, but let's just talk about you, very often women are out of balance, just like men are out of balance. There's hypermasculinity and stuff like that. That's not healthy either, but a lot of times women are out of balance in the sense that because they live in a masculine patriarchal society, and they value production, that values production over femininity and beingness, you yourself feel that you have to, in order to get value and recognition and raises and promotions, be in your masculine most of the time. So that's the understanding that we're working with. And what we say is, for a healthy love and relationship, you first have to get into balance with yourself. And what that comes from is us recognizing that in your relationships, in all of your relationships that haven't worked out, and or those that have had stumbles. So we work exclusively with single women. I know that you have people here that have been in relationship, not in relationship, whatever it is. But when you're exploring your relationships that haven't worked out, often what we find is that there is a pattern between the last guy and the guy 3 times before and the guy 5 times before. There's a pattern in how you do relationships. Now, that actually applies in how you do relationships at work, how you do relationships with friends and families, but there are patterns. We focus on the patterns that we see in relationships in single women who don't want to be single anymore and want to do something about that. So what we see is that there are patterns both known and unknown. There are gifts in these patterns. There are challenges in these patterns. And when we say a pattern, it could be, you could call it a cycle, you could call it a way of being, you could call it like the type of person that you are. But all of it comes from a feeling of, I like myself, I like my life, but there's some things about it that I'd like to be different or better. Or maybe you just flat out are saying like, God, this is a mess. I'm not liking this at all. And so the patterns that we look at, now there's a lot of different ways to look at these things, but we've broken down the patterns that we've seen after 11 years of doing this work. We see certain patterns, certain cycles repeating in women's relationships, and so they could be one of 5 patterns, what we call an idealist, or a dreamer, or a devotion pattern, or a protective pattern, or a passion pattern. Each one of these pattern types means that that's how you're doing relationships. And if you're not aware that there is a pattern there, then that pattern is going to continue running your life. And so knowledge is power when it's acted upon, when it's utilized. Right. So like I mentioned, there's gifts and challenges, right? So maybe you only know the gifts about being a dreamer, for example. But if you're not aware of the challenges, and why life can be a little harder if you're in the dreamer kind of way of being, then you're not going to be able to address it and deal with it. And you're not going to be able to take full advantage of the gifts either. And so each one of these patterns have these different gifts and challenges, and knowing that there are these patterns and is, we think, quite important in being able to take your life to the next level. So again, we work with single women, so part of the next level, if they're single and don't want to be, is to attract the right guy for them. and stop attracting the guy who's like the same guy in a different body. But it can be anything in your life. If you're in your life and you want to move to the next level in your career, well, why hasn't it moved to that level to this point? And what are the gifts and challenges of your ways of being that can allow you to take that next step in your career, in your business, anything like that, because these patterns are going to be showing up. All of us have different things that we, are, in terms of our ways of being, that has both helped us and hurt us. And the more you're aware of how these types, how these patterns have shown up in your life, the more control you have over what you want to do going forward.
Right. It's so powerful. And I like what you said. I got so many things about what you said, but the thing that stands out to me right now, Johnny, is when you said, and I hope that women listening are writing these things down, when you said knowledge is power when it's acted upon. And I could not agree with you more. There are lots of bodies of knowledge around to help women who want to access a new framework of thinking about their body, thinking about their soul, thinking about their life, thinking about their history, thinking about their present, their future. However, if we spin out in consuming lots of knowledge but then we don't have an action plan and take steps to make those substantial changes, to evolve our way of thinking, our way of being, to take those risks that we need to in order to break out of those patterns, then we're not going to grow. So that leads me into my next question. What are some ways that people can move forward right now, regardless of their past patterns?
Sure. I want to pick up a little bit about knowledge is power when it's acted upon. This is actually quite different than like 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, you could read a lot of books and like read most of the information about any topic that you wanted. You could read most of the information about that topic. That is completely impossible today to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, any information that you want is available at your fingertips at an instant, more information than you could consume in a lifetime about that topic. So if knowledge was all it took for us to change our lives, well, we'd all be like, living in, I don't know what, like Googletopia, right? Like everybody's happy and wealthy and slender, whatever the thing is, right? But it's not just the information. It's what you do with the information, and not someday, but right now. And this is critical because this energy of now can only be cluttered and interfered with by more and more and more and more and more and more knowledge. Like, I bet most people, if you're listening right now, chances are you're not sitting around going, I just wish there was more information available for me. That's not the thing. The thing is, what's information that is presented in a way that is that you can feel it, that has an emotional connection, and that you feel inspired to do something about it right now. So that's the key in this, just cluttered information society is you don't need more stuff to do. You need more stuff to do right now that works for you. That's why all of this stuff that we do is we do multimodality teaching. We do very community-based. Because we work exclusively with women, everything that we design is designed to be most usable for women, because women and men learn differently, and most of our educational system is created for the way men learn and boys learn. That's probably a whole other topic. So when we look at how you can move forward now in despite the patterns that you have in the past, and we have a whole quiz where you can find out what your pattern is, but whatever, if you've already seen some patterns in your life, the first thing is to do an honest assessment and about your life now. What's working and what's not working. So the end of the year is a great time to do this because we're just piggybacking on the natural energy of wrapping up and then beginning fresh, right? And so assessing your life, what's working and not working now, a simple pluses and minuses, a simple thing where you look at different areas of your life. Now, what a lot of times people do, if they do anything like this, is they'll do it in their mind and they'll jumble all the things up. And what I'm encouraging you to do is to separate out the different areas of your life. So your career is one area, but you are not your career. You are not your business. What about your personal life with your friends? Well, what about your romantic life? What about your health? Right? And so there's different areas that you can look. What about your spiritual life? So there's different areas that you want to look at and think about what's working and not working. Now, people tend to go too far one or the other. Either they have tons more pluses than minuses, and then they're wondering, why don't I feel like I'm moving anywhere? Well, maybe you're not allowing yourself to dream big enough about what else you'd like to have in your life. And then some people, their negatives, their minuses are like super long, their pluses is very short, and that means they're stuck in like looking at all the things that are wrong. And so you want to end up, hopefully, having a little bit of balance between some things are working, some things aren't. And it's really important to be gentle with yourself and be kind to yourself about the things that are not working. Because in my experience, we humans are procrastinators. We have, our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, and we have ideas and things that we want to do, and we're just not doing them at the clip that we think we should be doing. Why? Because you have access to everybody else that's doing everything else, and you're thinking, everybody else is ahead of me, and, I'm falling behind. And nothing could be further from the truth. So when you do this reflection on your life now and your assessment, you want to be gentle with yourself, you want to be kind to yourself, and you want to be honest with yourself about what's not working and what is working. So that's the first way that you can move forward. The second way is to start looking not just at the next week or month or even year, but look a year, 5 years, 10 years, and just write a few sentences about where you'd like your life to be. Bill Gates said most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is start to have a vision for where you'd like your life to be in 10 years. Now, some people have very, very detailed things, and I applaud them, and that's awesome. I generally don't. I have some things that are pretty general, but I put some specificity onto it so that I know the direction that I'm going. So like after I got divorced and I was just a complete mess feeling in my life, I started to pick myself up and look at what do I want my life to look at like down the line. So I was married, as I said, divorced. We didn't have any children, but I knew I wanted to be a father. And so what did I want to see in 5 and 10 years? I wanted to have a family. I wanted to be with someone who wanted to have a family and the right person, right? So for me, so having that was an important part. Now, did I know where I was going to live? No. I was in New York. I'm a New Yorker, if you can't tell by how fast I talk. But
East Coast. I like that.
Yeah. So I was living in New York, and so the thing that I recognized when I did that reflection of my life and what was working and not working was I know that I was always at the scene of the crime, so to speak. Not really a crime, but in the relationships that didn't work out, I was always there. So I had to stop blaming my former wife, my old girlfriends, because I was always there, right? So this might have something to do with me. And so when I looked at my life down the line, I wanted to be the reason why I got into a good relationship or participating in a good relationship, not the reason why the thing messed up or not picking the same people that are clearly wrong for me but not so clear at first. And so having that idea of where you want to go can help. So with that idea of like I need to make some changes in myself, I decided to move to California, which was for a New Yorker, as you know, as an East Coast person, is like, what? Leave the East Coast? Leave New York City? This is crazy. Why would you do that? You know?
Big deal.
So, right? And nothing would be crazier than moving to California. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a job, anything like that. But I just knew that it was time for me to make a change, and this was important. And that thing that seemed like such a big thing was really a quantum leap. And a lot of times we have this idea of a quantum leap being a huge thing, but in reality, in terms of physics, a quantum leap is actually a very small thing, but it makes a big difference. And so we even have a course called Quantum Leap to Love, but the idea is that it's a small but powerful shift in the short term that leaves you in a totally different place in 10 years from now. So like me making the changes, and there was a lot of stuff that precipitated the move to California, but me changing my mindset about, hey, you know what? I'm always in the center of the drama here. Maybe this has something to do with me, was helpful. So the second way, just to recap, is where do you want to be a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, and start acting on those shifts that can take you in a totally different direction. And the third thing, the third way to really move forward right now, even though you have different patterns and maybe, your pluses and minuses and stuff like that is not what you want to see, is use what we call your personal success formula. And personal success formula, I teach a big part about it, but I can give you the gist of it right now, is what has worked for you in the past to make a change and improvement in your life. And then what has worked for others? Like, look around. What has worked for others? And so, like, I'm Fernandez. I'm the first Fernandez born in this country in my family line. First one in my Fernandez side of my family to go to college. And so, having a lot of people around, having family members around who had gone to college, that wasn't an option for me. So I just looked at, well, maybe there's other people that have done this before and I can learn from them. So that's guidance counselors, that's tutors, that's all the people that would help someone achieve something that they want to achieve that maybe they don't have experience with. So, your personal success formula is where you look at when I've wanted to make a change and an improvement, not just a change, like a lateral change, but an improvement in my life. What's been present for me to make a change in my life? And often what you'll find is that if you're trying to make a change now and it's not happening, it's because you're not using that personal success formula. Usually it involves support, expert support, usually involves community, especially for women. Like I said, men and women learn differently. Usually it involves an investment of time, energy, resources into what it is that you want in the long term. So look at your personal success formula. Find something that you've done. Like I mentioned, I went to college, but it could be running a marathon, whatever. And then look at, hey, am I using that now for this area of my life that I want to change, that I want to improve? And if not, that should open your eyes to, like, okay, maybe there's something else that would help me to do this now that I see that this is how I've made change and improvement in the past in other areas, and I can do that in this area as well.
Yeah, that's a great list. I like that so much. There's so many really key actionable steps that you just listed, and not only are the steps in place, but also your way of describing how to think about and be reflective about what works well for you. And I like that it's not prescriptive. There's these general frameworks, but it can be specific to one individual's life. And you know what, Johnny, when I was listening, I was thinking to myself, in taking steps the way that you described, moving yourself forward, and sort of breaking through old patterns, I can imagine that there needs to be in place a lot of forgiveness. Because often, what I find from the women in Supreme Love Project who are tuning into Cold Crash and who would not miss an episode are often the women who don't trust themselves. These are the women who've been burned, who feel rejected, who feel abandoned, and so there's a lot of animosity towards other people, and actually the root of that animosity is in the self. So I think about forgiveness as a necessity to moving forward, as a necessity to noticing patterns, as a necessity to noticing your plan and constructing one. And so talk to us a little bit about the significance of forgiveness in crushing that cold, in doing the work of building bridges to intimacy and connection the way that you're describing. And why do people have such a hard time with forgiveness?
Sure. A lot of times when we're talking about forgiveness, there's some ideas that are attached to forgiveness that are a little off base, and it makes it hard to really forgive. And Now, we do a lot of exercises around forgiveness. We do a lot of things that well, let me just say it's a little unconventional, and it's definitely not something that anyone has seen in therapy and other things, just because of the way we approach things, which is very we use whole brain learning. But anyway, let me just get to the point about forgiveness. The idea is that when you attach forgiveness with agreement with whatever bad stuff you have done or somebody else has done, you then put too much burden on forgiveness. Let me give you an example. So somebody's in a relationship. The guy does them wrong in whatever way, abuse or cheating or whatever the thing is, or just is like not emotionally available and blames her or something like that. So this is our work and this is what we're doing. So I'm going to give you an example from that. So the idea that you need to forgive him is like, what happens is a lot of times people attach, well, that means I'm going to agree with him that it's my fault, or agree with him that it wasn't so bad, or agree with him that there's something wrong with me, and I don't want to do that, so I don't want to forgive him. And what we want to say is that forgiveness doesn't mean that you're saying that the thing that was done that was wrong is okay. Now, there is a difference between somebody doing wrong that is, maybe it's misinterpreted, it's kind of like your idea of wrong, and maybe they have a different idea of wrong. And then there's stuff that people do that's just everybody, if this were a reality TV show, everybody in the audience would be watching and going, man, that's messed up. That's totally messed up. That you should, and maybe if, use more colorful language, right? And so there is a difference between those two things. But if we're talking about something that, like, again, if you're on a reality TV show, everybody's watching, the whole audience is like, that's terrible, he's totally wrong, that's it, no two ways about it. The idea that you want to forgive him, again, feels like this idea of like, yeah, but now I'm saying that that's okay or it wasn't that bad. And unfortunately, a lot of people go there. A lot of women especially go there, is they don't allow themselves to honor the feeling of, hey, that was really wrong. And I didn't deserve that. And then that other part about saying it's okay. And the reality is that forgiveness is about freeing you, not even freeing them. And forgiveness doesn't mean, here's the other thing that's attached, is that if I forgive them, that means that we got to be all like warm and fuzzy and friendly again. No, you can forgive somebody and never want to talk to them again and keep them at the other side of the country, the other side of the world, whatever it is. So forgiveness just is allowing you to recognize that you are valuable and you are in control of your life and your feelings from this point forward. It doesn't mean that you're not affected by those things, but it does mean that you can, you have agency over your life going forward. And that's a critical part to all the work that we do. I know the work that you do, and probably every other expert that you've brought here, is that the idea that you have agency over your life and you have the ability to make changes in your life. Now, it doesn't negate that all the stuff that happened, again, what was, it was okay, or you shouldn't be mad about it, or anything like that. It's just, okay, so now what do we want to do? And it's very, very important that you recognize that forgiveness is critical, because there's a certain amount of compassion that comes out of forgiveness. Now, just saying it is often not enough. Like I said, is why we have whole teaching segments about it that are designed to shake it up. But the idea is that this is a critical piece, and it doesn't mean that you're saying that the person is okay or any of those things. But that compassion starts with yourself, because sometimes the forgiveness that you need to give is to give to yourself, because you've messed up. You've messed up in relationships. You've messed up with your health. You've messed up with your finances. And you know what? That just makes you human. I've messed up in relationships. I've messed up in money. I've messed up in my health. I've messed up in all those areas and continue to mess up in those areas. But I mess up a little less. And that's the idea, is that you mess up a little less. You learn some things. You see some areas where you have kind of like a little, like a weak link in the chain, so to speak. And that's just life. Like I played football when I was in high school, and I have various injuries in my body that really is related to that, and it's not going to ever change because that's just it. I can't go back and undo it. So I can either be mad about that and beat myself up over how, I did things that you would just say, well, that's stupid, but I could do that, but I did that already. I did that for a long enough time, and now I'm just like, okay, so I got to do these extra things to take care of myself. Even before we got on the call, I'm hanging upside down because I have to do certain things to have me have energy and not be in pain and stuff like that. But that's it. That's part of my life, and I can either cry about it or just deal with it and move on. And that's kind of how our approach is, and that's what we encourage, is that, these things have happened. These mess-ups have happened in every area of life, probably. Again, that just makes you human. Have some compassion for yourself and allow yourself to forgive yourself, forgive others, and then move on. Because, if you're still walking around, if you're able to get on this great telesummit and participate, there's a spark in you that says, there's more available for me. Yeah, there's more life available for me. There's more love available for me. There's more whatever available. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much about, what I'm getting, Johnny, as I listen to you, I'm picturing a woman in a cave. Cold Crush is so much about it, is like coaxing a woman out of a cave. If you've been in a space where you feel like, I just wrote a blog post called You Fucked Up. And it's basically it's a quick story about how someone said that to me one time, and it just broke my heart because it was attached to a lot of baggage that I had not cleared in my own body, that I had not cleared in my own experience, but it helped me to think about how, as women in a patriarchal society, a lot of us are detached from our humanity. And when I say that, I'm talking specifically about how so many women are created as caricatures. We are just we're like dolls, like talking puppets. And we are detached from our souls. We're detached from our human experience. So we don't allow ourselves to forgive ourselves for any past errors or mistakes. We imagine that we're supposed to be flawless, that we're supposed to be perfect, that in order to get love, to keep love, to be loved, to be visible, to be seen, to be safe, to be real, to be righteous, that we cannot mess up, that we cannot make a mistake, and we don't imagine ourselves as worthy of stumbling, just not having things figured out and not getting it right the first, second, or third time, and then not really connecting with the idea that experience of not knowing how all the time or fumbling sometimes is a human experience. And being detached from that, knowing that knowledge and giving ourselves that permission is what causes us to not forgive and not move forward and take steps out of the cave. Like, I can hear you in your description. If you were hung up today, not letting yourself off the hook for whatever you did as an adolescent or a young man on the football field, taking all kinds of risks with your body, doing all kinds of things that people do at that developmental stage. I mean, you were not being wrong then. You were doing what so many people in humanity do when you're 19 or when you're 21, and you think you're going to live forever, and you're not very clear about the significance of your body. That's par for course. If you at this point now are still hung up on that and beating yourself up on that, about that, not forgiving yourself, not creating the capacity to really grasp that what you had and what you did was a part of your human experience, I don't think you'd be here with this 11 years long, successful, global, highly influential and significant coaching practice, this ministry for women, because you'd be stuck. You'd be stuck.
Yeah, and that wanting to get out from being stuck is so important. And what is if someone listening is in a cave or something like that, there's an idea that like only perfect people get to be happy, and only perfect people get to have love. And Lara is perfect for me, and I'm perfect for her, but neither one of us are perfect. And oh my God, if we had to wait until we're perfect, we'd still be waiting, Right. But when you allow yourself to recognize that, that you're human, it also allows you to kind of be more real with yourself, because sometimes people, like, they don't forgive themselves because they think, yeah, that's fine for other people to make mistakes, but I'm smarter than that. And, you know, I shouldn't have done that. And like, oh my God, you know, my wife is a doctor and I'm a lawyer. Like, we're pretty smart, but that doesn't mean that, you know, there's not areas of our life where we're haven't messed up and stuff like that. So, head knowledge and life experience, can sometimes even be at odds with one another, because, we live in a very information dense society, that doesn't honor the soul, doesn't honor the feminine as much as it could and should. Now, obviously, some people do. You do. The experts that you're bringing here does, and you know, we do, and all the work that we do. But you get reinforced from the society that, like, you know, if you had more head knowledge, then you would, you know, be able to do all this stuff. And in my experience, no, that's not the case. That's a starting point, but you also have to have the emotional maturity to be able to say, not only did I mess up, but I'm going to probably keep messing up because I'm human, you know, and I just wanted to mess up a little less, you know, and those of us with, those of us with children, we have like, oh my God, you're probably, you know, the parental experience is you mess up, you think you've damaged your child for life, you forgive yourself, then you mess up again, you think you've damaged your child for life, you forgive yourself, and this is like a wash, rinse, repeat kind of thing, but that's like how life is, but sometimes we don't notice it. Like, our daughter is just awesome. She's 15 and she's written and published 6 books. She's doing the final editing on her 7th book, and she teaches us all the time about, like, yeah, you mess up and then you, like, you know, you just kind of like forgive yourself and then you move on. And so this is an experience that we probably had more when we were kids. You know, you're running, you skin your knee, you get up, you start running. But again, you know, but as grown-ups, very often we think we're smarter than that. So we've got this whole, you know, routine that we do with ourselves, and then we project that onto others. And that's the thing to notice. Like, again, we work with women, and when you're doing that to yourself, men can tell. And a healthy masculine man that wants to, you know, have a healthy feminine woman, these healthy and unhealthy don't really mix. And so you want to be in a place where you're compassionate with yourself, so then you can be compassionate with the other person, because he's going to mess up too, and he has messed up in his life, you know. And so being able to forgive yourself allows yourself to see that other people are going to mess up too. And, you know, that doesn't mean you just allow any old which way kind of behavior and actions, but nobody's going to be perfect, and not you and not anybody else. Right,
absolutely. And that's a key idea to remember when you are melting away some of those barriers and some of those blocks. And if you're a part of the Cold Crush, you're doing it. Like, you're here, you're present, you're worthy, you are capable. And we're going to do everything that we can to provide you with the resources. So, Johnny, I have a couple more questions. I think I can squeeze them in the last, like, 5 or 10 minutes, maybe.
Sure.
It really is kind of a personal question. You talk about how you and Lara have been doing this work for 11 years. So my curiosity is, what keeps you passionate about this? And what keeps you going?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, like I said, we work exclusively with women, and I feel honored to do this work, and I feel very fulfilled in seeing women. Some are single moms, some are, you know, want to have families, some you know, are past that and they just want to have a good relationship. But I know the difference that a woman who is both soft and strong, in her power, loving herself, able to love others, I know the impact that has in her family and in her community. And I also am aware when that is not present, the effect, because I grew up in a household where there was domestic violence. So my stepfather, not my biological father, but my stepfather was violent, and that is not because my mom wasn't or isn't a good person. And it doesn't mean that she didn't try hard and want the best for herself and her children. It's because She didn't really know how to make good and healthy choices. She didn't really know how to make good and healthy choices for her life, for men, things like that. And I saw the effect on my mother, who I love, and the effect on us kids, when, a typical night could end up where everybody's in their pajamas in the emergency room happens to you several times in your childhood. That's going to have an effect. And I feel honored to be able to, and not everybody is in that boat or anything like that, but as I said, it's a result of not really having the tools, not really having support, not really having a framework of understanding of how powerful you are as a person and specifically as a woman to affect positive change in your life, in your family's life, in those around you. So I'm super passionate about this because I know that the work that we do makes a difference in women's lives, and I know that that has ripple effects all around. And that's our little secret plan to make the world a better place, because I'm not the president, I don't have some big company or stuff like that, but the women that come into contact with us know from a very deep place when they work with us that you have the power to change your life, and we'll give you the tools. We'll be with you as much as you want to make that happen, but you have the power to change your life, and if you really want to do that, we'll help you do that. And you can change even if you're the person who has made very poor decisions and poor choices. That can stop today. And so after once we passed 10 years, I think it dropped into a new level of knowing that the impact really is real. And I'm still an educational wonk, so I'm still looking at research and seeing that the effect of it, and seeing that, hearing from clients years later and how they still use the practice, principles, tools, and teachings that we offer now in their life, and they're married and kids and raising kids and stuff like that. So it's very personal to me to have people be healthy and make healthy choices in their life. And so, I'm just, that's why I'm still passionate, and probably more passionate now than I was when I first started it.
Well, that's a blessing for all of us. And I like that what you're talking about now helps us to see a bit of your roots. I think that it's for any woman, and I encourage the women in the Supreme Love Project, or people who are new to the Supreme Love Project, make sure that you invest in a coach, make sure you invest in a community, make sure you get yourself anchored, and pay attention to your coach's motivation, and pay attention to the curriculum that's put in place and how well drafted it is. I think that what you just expressed, Johnny, helps people to also feel, they might not even know what you just described, but your intention of service that comes out of your childhood, your experience, and seeing firsthand the kind of detriment that comes from a lack of investment in women, a lack of faith in women, a lack of respect for women, and a lack of encouragement and support for women is a part of what drives you, and that comes across. That comes across in the way that you care, and I think that it's true for just about every guest in Cold Crush and Hot Help and every Supreme Love Project that I produce. And so thank you for keeping that commitment close to your heart, and know that it gets felt by the people who interact with you. So it's good.
Yeah.
So the last thing I really want to do is I want to hear a little bit about your free gift before we close up, and I ask about some of the parting gifts that you're able to provide for us before we close.
Sure.
Talk about your gift.
Well, before we kind of begin the wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, the depth of it, and just the alignment of what Cold Crush is all about, what you're all about, and what we have to offer as well. So, in terms of what free gift, I mentioned how there's patterns, right, and love patterns and stuff like that. And so Lara and I developed a quiz so you can kind of discover what's your love pattern and what are the specific gifts and challenges of that particular love pattern. What can you do about it? Again, we've all kind of, done whatever we've done in our lives, but what can we do about it now? And knowing your pattern gives you the knowledge, and then we kind of spell out there a 3-step plan for what to do about it. And again, like I said, we spell out the gifts and challenges. So if you'd like to get your hands on, right now it's still free, the quiz, and you'll get a customized report about which one of the patterns you are. You can go to findyourlovepattern.com. Again, it's findyourlovepattern.com. Kind of a New Yorker's talking fast. I want to make sure I'm articulating. So findyourlovepattern.com, and it's free as of now. It's still free to do that, and go there. So and you'll get a full report on a full guidebook on what's your love pattern and all of it, just describing it a little bit more. And a lot of people say it's been very, very helpful to know that, because it's kind of like, okay, yes, I can see these gifts, and hey, I didn't think about those challenges, or I knew those challenges, but I didn't think about those gifts. So that's been very helpful for folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ladies, definitely download the gift, get it, figure out the information you need to know so you can have your action plan ready. So, Johnny, that brings us to the close of the interview, and I want to ask you if you can give us those 3 parting gifts. The parting gifts that I describe for my guests is that any pieces of advice, words of wisdom, resources to look up, ideas to consider, key words to remember, that will help us to make some moves after we are finished with this interview.
Sure, absolutely. So 3 parting gifts. So I'm a big fan of shaking up what's happening right now, and there can be subtle ways and big ways. But just to write down, if you have a place to take notes, just write down on a notebook and later put it on a Post-it note, the life that I want is possible. And that's really important to remind yourself. So if you put it on a Post-it note, put that on your bathroom mirror so you're seeing it every day. The life that I want is possible. And then journal about why now is the time to go for it. Because, God, you're busy, you got so many things going on and stuff like that. You know, it's not going to be any different at the start of the next year or the next year. So, here we are in December. Why is now a great time to really go for the life that you want? And again, that can be growing your career, deepening your relationship with the partner that you're with. That can be about finding the partner. Whatever it is, why is now a great time to do that? And journal about that. The second gift is to notice that there are seasons in the year. So it's maybe a longer gift, but just notice that in the winter season, that's like the planning and preparation. Then there's spring, where you make leaps and bounds forward and stuff like that. Then there's fall, and then there's winter again. Just notice that there's seasons in your life. And so if you're feeling like you want to be home a little bit more during these, this is obviously northern hemisphere. Maybe you have people in the southern hemisphere who it's summer now, and we have clients like that as well. So I understand that bias that I have toward the northern hemisphere stuff. But for probably most people, it's winter now, and just notice that things come in seasons, and take the time to journal and reflect and plan for your spring, spring forth, and really make this year an awesome year. And the third thing is that, I want to acknowledge you, listener, for participating in this and listening to the speakers and hopefully taking notes and stuff like that. And I want to encourage you to, as Janine was just saying, follow up with those one or more than one that really resonate with you, and allow yourself to use your personal success formula, which usually involves investing time, energy, and resources in the direction that you want to go. And if you find that someone really, resonated with you and spoke to you, I encourage you to follow up, because, if somebody has the results that you want, that's the person that you want to learn from. And so don't just have it be where you're collecting information. Have it be where you're looking for an action plan, and then you're willing to follow up, and you'll be a lot happier. And next December, you'll have, some successes in areas, progress in areas, and other things that still didn't get done, and that's the human experience. Be kind to yourself.
That's it. I mean, that's it. Thank you so much, Johnny Fernandez, for those parting gifts, for this wonderful conversation, for all of the work that you and Lara are doing in the world. I know that this weekend you have a big, huge live event for your community, and I wish you the best. And I hope that more hearts are healed and more blessings come down, and I know that they will. So thank you for your time.
Very, very much honored to be here. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, so everybody listen, you know what to do. Take the messages that you hear to heart. Build them into your body. Join us at the Supreme Love Project with Facebook group. We will invite as many of our guests as we possibly can to join us there to answer questions after each interview. And remember, I will be here on the next episode of the Supreme Love Project. Bye-bye.
Thank you for participating in the Supreme Love Project. We're a division of Literacy for Life, LLC. Please visit thesupremeloveproject.com for more information about our products and services. Visit JanineStaples.com for more information about our beloved founder and president. And remember, take this message to heart and build it into your body. We'll see you next time, right here. The place to make love, not war, every day of your life.